want to welcome everyone to Project Management Methodologies. So, as you likely are aware, there are many different methodologies that you can use to manage your projects. So, in your journey towards business success, this can be a long one, and you're likely to face many challenges. And in navigating those challenges, you need to make certain that your plans are carefully managed. And for that, you'll need good project management. So, in this course, we're going to be introducing you to several different project management methodologies. Pardon me. And this will be an introduction to the most prominent or popular methodologies, including waterfall, agile, hybrid, and scrum. And I'd like this class to be interactive. So if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand or stop me at any point and we can discuss those questions along the way. So let's start with waterfall. This is probably the most frequently used at this point, most frequently used and most common and most widely known of the methodologies. So waterfall was developed in 1970 by Winston Royce. It is the traditional project management methodology that most of us are familiar with. It's commonly used in manufacturing and construction, but it can be used in any sector. And waterfall is all about taking a sequential approach where progress flows in one direction, cascading through the phases like a waterfall. And its main idea is that you can only move in one way, one direction, phase by phase. As one phase is completed, you move into the next phase. And so it's also known as phase or stage or gate methodology. So are any of you familiar with this process, this methodology? I see some head nods. Okay, great. So the waterfall methodology's key principles are sequential phases and the importance of documentation. It has rigorous documentation requirements. So the pros of waterfall is that it is not affected by changes in personnel because of this rigorous documentation. So, for example, because waterfall requires this rigorous documentation, you've got your project charter, your statement, or scope of work. You've got many different plans. You've got a communication plan, you've got a risk management plan. All of these documents are requirements of the waterfall methodology. If for some reason your project manager has to leave the project, let's say they become ill, they leave the company, any reason at all, they would have to leave the project, the next project manager can step in, review all of that documentation, and be able to pick up the project with little to no lag or disruption in the project. So it makes it very predictable, and it's easy for someone to come in and pick up the project. Waterfall is the tried and true methodology that has stood the test of time. And so it's embedded in many project management offices. And it's great for getting work done in a structurally solid way. Does anyone have any questions at this point? So let's talk about some of the cons of the waterfall methodology. Well, what can be a pro is also a con. So it does require rigorous documentation, and that doesn't always work for everyone. So, because of those rigorous documentation requirements, um, if the objectives or requirements change midway, or the initial pre work isn't actually done correctly, you have to go back to the beginning and start over because there's no way for waterfall to adapt or change um, in that middle phase, and that could actually derail your entire project. Now, this doesn't mean that your scope can't change. You can amend the scope of work. You can certainly waterfall does allow for change management, but it's not the same as agile. And so this rigid, um, rigorous process just it's not as adaptable and as some other methodologies. So do you have any questions before we move on to the next methodology?
No.
No questions? Okay, so let's talk about
I'm just curious, is there a presentation that we should be seeing? I just wanna make sure.
I'm sorry, you are not seeing the presentation. Thank you so much for letting me know that. There, how's that?
Yep, now we see it.
We can
Oh my
see
gosh,
it.
this happened last year too, and I thought I had fixed this. Oh goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed. And of course, this is recorded.
It happens to all of us.
Oh goodness. All right, agile. So the agile methodology was created by a group of software industry leaders in 2001 with the Agile Manifesto. So it is all about being able to move quickly and easily. And that's how the agile methodology got its name. So um, it is about, well, being agile, quick, easy, and iterative. So the key principles of agile are that it is an iterative process and it doesn't involve rigorous planning at the beginning, unlike the waterfall process. So it lets everything evolve through collaboration of self-organizing and cross-functional teams and their customers. So this collaboration is crucial. It is foundational to the agile methodology. Some of the core values of the agile methodology are that individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So agile values individuals over process and working products over comprehensive documentation. So coming out of a sprint with a working product is more important than comprehensive documentation. So the process can move faster and objectives can adapt with these changing needs. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Agile actually brings in the customer and involves them in the evolution of the project and the product that is being developed. And then finally, agile values responding to change over following a plan. So, as someone who has practiced waterfall for 30 years, when I read through these core values, I get a little chill down my spine because um, this is so different that from the waterfall methodology, that it just feels odd. It feels very strange because with waterfall, having your plan and having your documentation is a core um, element. And so Agile says, no, we're going to adapt. We're going to lead, and we're just going to see how we're going to evolve as we go along. Any questions about that? No? Okay. So the pros of Agile are that it's adaptable. It's also used for complex projects, and it's very flexible and collaborative. And because of its adaptability, Agile is commonly used for these complex projects like product development involving many teams, and where there's a lot of uncertainty. And its main aim is to produce high quality results, sometimes ahead of schedule because of this flexibility. And it's collaborative, and it's possible to proceed through the process because of that adaptability. Okay, but the cons are that this can seem and feel erratic because there is no formal plan, and managing resources can be a challenge. The documentation can also suffer, and stakeholders and the sponsors have to work together and closely with the team. Okay, so that's Agile in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions? So let's talk about the hybrid methodology. So this combines the best of waterfall and Agile. It's also sometimes known as structured Agile or AgFall. So this methodology cherry picks from both and combines them to make a methodology that is both flexible and structured. And for this reason, we sometimes call it structured Agile. So the hybrid methodology starts off with a defined structure and then converts to more agile practices. So it focuses on flexibility and structure. So the hybrid methodology begins with the structure of the initial planning phases from waterfall, but then it moves into the more flexible structure or practices of agile to focus on the small sprints rather than one linear marathon. So the pros of the hybrid methodology is that it's good for medium-sized projects. It provides that initial structure and plan that we see with waterfall, but then it allows for the flexibility on how you actually achieve those goals that you have with agile. But it also has some cons because it's not really providing you the full flexibility that you would have with agile. And yet it still lacks the structure of a full waterfall, which would follow after the initial planning stages. So hybrid methodology is neither agile nor waterfall. So it lacks the full opportunities that they would provide. But if it works for your project, it is an option. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So now we're going to talk about one specific agile methodology, which is Scrum. So this is a more structured variant of agile. And so Scrum has a Scrum Master rather than a project manager. And the key principles of Scrum would be that it's best for teams of 10 or fewer. So because it relies on self-organized teamwork, and the tasks within the project are put into a backlog at the beginning and then split into sprints where the work is divided into short sections. And usually the sprint has a duration of no more than a month, most frequently only 2 weeks. So that work then contains a dedicated amount of time, usually 2 weeks, to finish specific features, and all of the resources are dedicated to that work during this time. So the Scrum Master leads a daily sprint catch-up meeting. This is sometimes called a stand-up meeting. And that stand-up meeting usually lasts about 15 minutes, and it usually occurs in the morning. So we call it the morning stand-up meeting. And at the end of each sprint, there is a sprint review that during which the team gets together and decides on the next steps. In Scrum, each of these meetings are called ceremonies. So some of the pros for Scrum is that it breaks down this work into manageable chunks. And then by doing so, it accomplishes more in a short time. So again, the entire team is focused on the work to be accomplished during that short period of time. But some of the cons include that it requires the full commitment of each team member to succeed. And the team members must also fully grasp the project scope and the resources available. So it's great for building creativity and team chemistry, but it does need the entire team to be fully committed. That means that they have to be self-motivated. And if you don't have a team that is disciplined and self-motivated, then the Scrum Master can end up acting with more responsibilities than was originally expected. And also, if the team doesn't have the full picture of what the project scope is or the resources that are available, then this uncertainty can lead to failure. So if you're not sure how you're going to communicate or how committed your team members are, then this probably isn't the right option to choose. Okay, so in summary, if your project has a lot of fixed parts, then you might want to consider waterfall. But if you're looking for full flexibility, consider agile. Now, hybrid takes the best of both worlds and uses the initial planning phase of waterfall and then moves to agile to take advantage of its flexibility. But it is neither fully waterfall nor agile. So use it with caution. Now, Scrum uses self-organized teams to sprint towards the goal in small chunks. What questions do you have? Does anyone want to ask a question about these different methodologies?
When you say that, okay, so if we go through the waterfall, you
Mhm,
obviously have a list that you're gonna follow along with, or a way that you're gonna follow it. Same with agile.
mhm,
And obviously hybrid would do the same thing. Scrum would be kind of just breaking those down even further into little, like you said, chunks or steps of it, correct?
mhm. So
This is,
waterfall is going to um, follow the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing phases of project management. That's what the waterfall is. And in each of those phases, you're going to perform specific tasks. With agile, it's all about um, flexibility. And let's say that, and I'm just going to use this very standard example. Let's say that your goal in agile, pardon me, is to build a car. Your team in the first step may say, okay, here is a roller skate. We know that we're supposed to build a car, but this is that's we're building transportation. So this does not meet the customer's end goals, but it is a step towards transportation. So we're going to reiterate, and at the conclusion of our next sprint, we're going to deliver a skateboard. Well, this is an improvement on our first step. It is not yet the final step, but it's an improvement. And then in the next iteration, we deliver a wagon. Okay, it's still not the final deliverable, but it's an improvement on where we were. And you just keep iterating and improving with each iteration until you do reach the final um, uh, deliverable that meets the customer's requirements. Is that clear?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And hybrid would start with a planning phase where you would plan out maybe a schedule, a budget, and then you would launch into those agile um, steps. What else can I answer for you? Maybe
Angela,
you. Mhm.
so you mentioned that in the waterfall, it's very structured, it has different phases.
Yes.
And with Agile, it's much more flexible.
Yes.
So I am brand new to Agile, as far as the term. Maybe I've been using it and not realize it. Um, how does that look different? I mean, are those different phases just like whatever the team wants to call them?
Agile doesn't have any phases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And um, Agile doesn't have the rigorous documentation that waterfall requires.
Okay.
Waterfall requires a extensive documentation.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, when you initiate a project in waterfall, one of the first things you're going to do is create a project charter, and that charter would lay out um, the purpose of the project, who is the sponsor, um, what the budget of the project is, uh, what the overall requirements are, and basically it's the sponsor has to sign the charter, and it is the authorization for the project manager to actually assume responsibility for the project and receive that funding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, here you go. Yes, we are going to authorize this project and give this project manager the authorization to proceed.
Thank you.
And that's just the very first one. And then you'll start working on the statement of work, the project management plan, the communication plan, the risk management plan, the the material plan, just a plan for everything. And then start working on your work breakdown structure and and from that creating your schedule and your resource planning. So not only the resources as in who are the team members who are actually going to be completing the tasks that are in the work breakdown structure, but also any other resources you might need, like machine time, materials, testing resources. So let's say that you're doing some kind of quality test and you have to reserve lab time. All of that has to be planned as well. Okay, so these four methodologies are just the ones that are probably the most common, but here are some others as well. We have the critical path methodology, which will identify for you those tasks which are essential and will make up the shortest path to complete the project. So that is the critical path. And then the critical chain project management is a little bit, it's similar to critical path, but it's not exactly the same. So critical chain takes into account any other resources and dependencies, those sorts of things. Integrated project management considers the work of others that must also be included. So this is for very large projects. So when I worked for NASA, we had an integrated project management plan because while I was working on the load converters for the space station, someone else was working on another element of the power management system. So we each had our individual product that we were working on, but overall, there was an integrated project management plan for the entire power system. Does that make sense? Okay. And then there are projects integrating sustainable methods. This is especially used in industries where sustainability is a goal. And then projects in controlled environments too. So this is used a lot in the UK. And I'm sure that there are many, many others. I'm just not aware of all of them. All right. So thank you so much for your participation. I do invite you to come back next week for time management projects. And as I said, I am the owner of Thurman Co. LLC, a project management consulting firm in Houston. And you can reach me at this email address. If you have
Angela?
any questions at all, just let me know. Yeah.
Angela, can we get a copy of this
Yes. Yes, of course. I
presentation,
will.
the slide?
Yes. Yep. I will send it to you at the conclusion of our meeting today.
Because my chicken scratch is good, but I like to be able to go through the PowerPoint again and look at them. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. This is
Okay.
great.
And if you have any follow-up questions, please reach out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Yep.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thank
day.
you so much. So good to see you.
Bye-bye.